This edition of The Accidental Author features a 6-part multimedia series covering the nuts and bolts and heart and soul of authoring a novel. These 7-minute segments are taken from an hour-long one-on-one interview originally broadcast on WESU-FM in Connecticut.
The Business Buzz. Live with Jeffrey Sherman.
Whoa! What's going on here?
From WESU 88.1 FM, Middletown.
We have a special guest on the Business Buzz today. We have Tom Avitabile, a leading author, fictional author. Tom Avitabile, author now of 4 books. You have a tweet, and I'm sure you've probably heard this one before. I believe I have some books in my head, but I have difficulty getting motivated. How did you get motivated?
That's a good one. That's a real good one. Writers write, period. You can have them in your head. You're not a writer. Start today.
Just
right
start,
now.
As they say, just do it.
Take out your iPhone, go to notes, and start writing. Write 1 sentence, then 2 sentences. I don't care if it's the beginning, the middle, the end of the book. I don't care if it has anything to do with the idea in your head. You got to it's like priming the pump. Once you prime the pump, once you put 2 sentences together, and let's say the idea in the head is a boy meets girl, boy loses girl in a crowd and spends 9 years trying to find her. You know, and in that time everything happens and revolves, and when they finally meet, it isn't what either he thought it was going to be. Okay, dopey idea, but that's the idea. That's all it is. Now you put down the train door closed just as he reached, to try and stop it, and there she was gone. He saw her red hair going up the staircase. As the train pulled out of the station, he felt his life force straight, all that stuff.
Yeah, but
once you write that, you're like, okay, it stinks, but it's great because I've put something down on paper.
Isn't that a metaphor of life? In other words, I've met many people that have these great ideas. You're going to do this, that, and the other thing. 1% actually do something about it. So that's very interesting. We've had some motivational
but again,
people.
to that tweeter, I would say nothing is better than writing. And if you find that to be the case, you're a writer. If you say, I hate the idea. Look, I never finished a composition in school. I do 8,000 words on a Saturday. I do 3,000 words on a weekday. I get up an hour early. I go to bed an hour later. I work during lunch. I got a little spot in Manhattan on 30th Street. I walk in. They got my table because it has a plug. And they serve me the food on the side, and I write. But when you got to write, you got to write.
Yeah, but isn't it also like, okay, you had compositions in school, high school, whatever, and it was George Washington, a great leader. You're not really into it. Isn't it true also about life is that if you're doing something you love, you're going to do it? Tom, even someone as talented as you are as a writer is going to kind of blow it off and you'll be declared functionally, illiterate, right?
And that, I got to tell you, that's the big problem. The big problem is most people's entree into literature, most people's entrees into creative writing is usually stymied because it's the common tool, both in social studies and sometimes even in math and in English. But there are different things going on. You're not really dealing with creativity at that point. There's other, agendas, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But when you purely write for yourself, when you sit down and you write for yourself, forget grammar, forget, spelling, forget all that. Get the idea right. Somebody once said the first draft of a book is you telling you the story. And I think that's so appropriate because in that first draft, you're actually testing yourself. Where am I going with this? Where does the character go? Who am I bringing in here? And you're learning the story yourself.
Now let's talk about, your current book. I want to talk about your previous books, but your current book, which is, by the way, has gotten, for our listeners out there, great reviews. In fact, I'll read you one of the more recent reviews, and it's very interesting. If you like your thrillers realistic enough to make your spine tingle and well-written enough to keep you turning pages, you must pick up The Devil's Quota. Tom Avitabile is at the top of his game. Read this book. Linda Fairstein, and she is from where?
Linda Fairstein is a incredible author. She was the head of the New York District Attorney's Sex Crimes Unit, which had been made popular by Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Well, that was Linda for 20 years. That's what she ran. She ran that department, and it hadn't been there before. She's a major crime fighter, and she went on as a life as an author of novels, and she writes incredibly gripping, wonderful New York backdrop stories that you live in when you read them. I mean, you actually walk down the streets with her. You're in the restaurants with her. You're in the back alleys with her. Her grip on New York is just astounding. And her insight that she brings in from being not only on the criminal side of justice, but also with the victims. She's got such a sensitivity that her books she's sold millions, 10, 15 million books in 9 different languages all around the world, maybe 10.
So that's quite an accolade, getting a review like that from such a prestigious author.
I am still in shock. I am still in shock.
One thing that I found interesting, among others, is, believe it or not, I'm a very good writer, like a technical writer. I could write you a report on some topic. But what, you just kind of lightly and kind of, talked about the train station scenario you painted. I cannot do that. I would have no gauge in that, like her hair blew in the midtime air. I mean, it's tough to do. That is really hard to do. And I wonder if, people in our audience who has tried to write a fictional novel, that's got to be really hard.
Well, yeah, but, drop down right now and give me 20 push-ups. Maybe. Drop down and give me 50. Probably not. Why? Because you didn't do the 20. So the imagination, the visualization, and this is my process. People have different ways of going. I see it like a movie. So I saw the train station. I saw the door closing. I saw the girl going up the stairs. I saw red hair bouncing up the stairs because you don't see her face. You just see her hair. I saw the shot and I saw the camera pan in my brain. So I just said it, okay? And that doesn't come because of one push-up. You do that every day. You put yourself in situations. When you're out on the street, you look at things, okay? You what is art? Art is really just life from another perspective, another point of view. Okay, when you write, you don't want to write what everybody knows the way they know it. You want to kind of write what everybody knows from a way they don't know it. So you have a common touch, but then you have a unique perspective. So if you train your brain to see things at different angles, to see different ways in, like one of the things my cousin, George Canestraro, is a brilliant writer, and again, a late bloomer into writing, but man, is he good. And in the early days when he was starting out, you said, well, how do you do, And one of the things we came to was the way in. And if you're writing, what's the way into the scene? If you watch a TV show or you watch a movie, you see a tray, it's got champagne on it, and the camera goes close to the tray, and then a beautiful girl walks by, and the camera follows that, and then it opens up, and there's people having dinner at a table, and it's either a mob scene where someone's going to get shot, or it's a wedding, or whatever it is, but that's the way in, okay? So think about the way in when you write. In other words, where do I come in from? They say, another thing, it says, come in late, leave early in a scene, okay? Never give me all the pre-functionary build-up to a scene, and never hang around long enough to tie it all out so that I'm really satisfied. Come in late, leave early. Well, what's the direction you're coming in from? Is it fatalistic? Are you overhead? Is it objective, where you're not involved? Is it subjective, where you're in the emotion and the feeling of the character? And then all of the other things you put in the scene, all of the props, all of the sets, the location, the characters, the things they interact with, and then the subtext of what's really going on, because it's never about the text, it's about the subtext. Once you learn all these things like a tool, you're fluid, and then these things come to you like brushes to an artist. You just know what to reach for, you know how to dab, you know how to mix the color, and it comes out perfect on the canvas.
Next time on The Accidental Author.
You sit in the dark, essentially. The world disappears and you're looking at a screen. You don't know if anybody's going to understand 2 words. You don't know if anybody's going to get any of the connections. Really, this is structure stuff. This is like, for people with beards to sit around in future generations and go, he was using a construct of the omnipotent narrative at this point. For the first-time author or the first person sitting down to write, don't even think about that. Forget that. Write your story. Get it out. And there is a sensuality that comes from literature. The light touch starts to come to you.
That's next time on The Accidental Author.